Hello everyone, my name is Pelina EFİLTİ. Today I'm going to represent our study named Redefining Domestic Craft Making, Cultivation of New Craft Practices and Identity Through the Social Media. The material heritage of a particular culture has a special distinction from mass-produced goods through the specific homemade artifacts because the domestic making reveals the division between amateur, homemaker, and professional producer with the aim and the amount of the production. This routine making process in domestic settings involving a recreation activity is representing a do-it-yourself approach that is intersect producing and consuming activities at one point. On the other hand, domestic craft making materialized a value creation practice in the form of an artifact. Because of their creation in domestic setting, they represent a particular notion of femininity and seen as a woman work. The motivation sources of homemaking may be different as representing a particular creative language and style, performing domestic assignment for economic support, or developing a hobby and spending time on inconsequential things. In Turkish culture, domestic handicrafts are the most significant pieces of dowry tradition. Dowry is to so include different handicrafts such as embroidery, knitting, needlework, patchwork, and crochet work. Those domestic handicrafts base upon cultural traditions because making processes depend on particular traditional craft practices that are followed by help of specific and shared craft knowledge, pathways, and procedures. Handicrafts testify to the age, period, and events in which they lived and were produced, but they may transfer to and continue to use by next generation. Thus, domestic handicraft practices, which are women-centric and regarding as women's art, have the feature of connecting women of different generations and providing a domestic tradition transfer between them through the embodied artifacts. Besides, domestic making activities may turn into collective handicraft sessions like training courses or traditional golden days of Turkish women where they talk about their production and making processes, help others making, give their tips and methods, and moreover exchange their patterns. This study will be limited with embroidery practice and its techniques that are frequently encountered in Turkish culture. In Turkish cultures, embroidery practice carries whole artistic and cultural values and conveys the feelings, thoughts, skills, and tastes of owner and maker. It is a language of communication in the society with both form and decoration features. These products that are based on the art of decoration have combined nature and traditional culture. Also, they have integrated aesthetics and usefulness through the particular meaning and story of production technique and ornaments. For instance, according to old traditions, the women who were recently married have not easily expressed her thoughts at home. Thus, ornaments used colors or production techniques of embroidery, which contain certain names, meanings, and values, have been seen as the nonverbal speech. The woman who conveyed a message to her mother-in-law with the pattern she embroidered, or she might just embroider the shape believed to bring luck in the spiritual sense. But literature emphasized the underestimation of the art of these textile handicrafts because of its identification with femininity and women-oriented labor by mainstream society. However, craft practices which contain imaginary thinking and reflection are meaning-making activities hold a creative literacy of practitioners. Thus, with the rise of third-wave feminism, today craft movements and domestic mastership of women gain the respect and trait potential of creativity through development of technology and digitalization. Digital media shapes everyday life for everyone, especially with the domestication of computers and emergence of web. It had affected not only social relationships but also behaviors of individuals as amateur homemakers, non-designers, or professional producers. So the boundaries between hardware and software worlds have blurred, and accordingly, behaviors of individuals who are in the act of making have started to take place in the intersection of these two words. So it can be said that digital media as a platform enabling the concept of openness and intersection influence the exchange of information and know-how that lead to democratization of knowledge and making process. Also, it empowers domestic makers and changes their motivation sources by this way. It also refigurates making and doing practices by its offers and transform these into collective and collaborative development with removal of barriers between amateur and professional. As the offspring of Web 2.0, social media platforms like Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Pinterest, Etsy, or Behance are now widely used as the new medium of the open source movement, generally focused on do-it-yourself activities, with the ability to connect communities, to provide easy access to information, to allow easy sharing, and to form a divided creation production in the context of domestic environment. This paper seeks to inform the response dynamics of domestic embroidery craft making and production under the influence of the digitalization culture and aims to reveal the change of traditional crafting practices and approach fostering through social media platforms. So an online survey was conducted with 42 Turkish women participants engaging in embroidery. Survey has open-ended, multi-choice and sample-based questions that contain questions about the practice, learning and improving processes, inspiration source, and social media use. The qualitative data were analyzed with thematic analysis method. The majority of participants defined that their knowledge about embroidery making practice come from their elder relatives, such as their mothers, sisters, or grandmothers, or they learn the practice by watching videos of more qualified practitioners on YouTube platform. Besides, nearly all of the participants emphasize that they are making embroidery to get an income. In contrast to traditional craft knowledge, pathways and procedures, social media and internet-based resources brought forth new orientations about methods, techniques, and content-based approaches. Content-based trends were revealed as making illustrations, decorative figures, or popular figure applications, and typographic writing. New methods and technique-based trends are also including different materials or craft techniques, application on clothes or accessories. Participants mentioned that they mostly prefer to use Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, and Etsy. So focusing on making practices, we analyze the usage motivation of these platforms. Practitioners generally use social media platforms in three categories: for practice, for research, and for personal curiosity. First, practitioner practice for gaining experience and improving skills. By this way, they learn new craft techniques, models, and materials. It is defined that they mainly watch videos from YouTube and they are learning by watching. Second, practitioners follow others and search for inspiration sources, both local and foreign. By this way, they learn from others that are better in practice. Thus, they mainly use Instagram, Pinterest, and YouTube. Third, practitioners use Instagram, Pinterest, and Etsy for satisfy their personal curiosity and represent their ability and craftsmanship. For practitioners, these platforms are both motivation sources and the stage to create novelty. The thematic analysis of qualitative data show us three main themes about the effects of social media and digitalization on domestic making practices of embroidery. First, of course, the existence of social media affects practitioners' used source for inspiring through the rising orientation of digital platforms and communities. Thus, the information source of practitioners shifts from traditional routes to online and open sources. Secondly, through these online and open sources, social media triggers creative activity of practitioners to create more original works instead of following traditional making procedures and producing replicas. Also, with the effect of popular culture, these sources provide new improvements and technique development of practitioners. Also, all these lead to originality of artifacts instead of traditional motifs and ornaments. Third, social media transformed the social interaction of making through affecting the purpose of production for sale instead of dowry or tradition transfer. It becomes a new communication medium among makers and create new type of communities for exchanging ideas and transforming knowledge. Besides, it fosters the interaction between makers and customers. Also, importantly, social media redefines the identity of domestic practitioner from hobbies to maker and producer. So these three orientations show us domestic making activities detached from traditional points of sources and making methods and communities. Because social media first affects and provides new sources for inspiration. Second, fosters creative reflection of maker and turns the end product through encouraging the originality of practice. And last, changes the form of social interaction of making. As a result, domestic making craft practices and the agent of practitioner are redefined by social media. New practices and identity are cultivated through the potential of new sources, new form of social interactions, and also through leading the creative reflection and originality. Thank you for listening.